But I digress. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show about Sonic news, and Sonic movie news. My name is Ethan, and with me here to die in space is Devin.
Protocol says we need to check it out, so we're checking it out.
Hey, that works for me. Yes, today is a very special day. Devin, do you know why?
It is... What's the date? It's past 7-Eleven, so I was going to say it's not Slurpee Day anymore, but...
Today happens to be the 1-year anniversary of this exact day 1 year ago. And to celebrate that strange occasion, we watched Dead Space Downfall, the 2008, I assume direct-to-video, because I didn't find any box office numbers for it, and I doubt it was ever theaters. Box office, or Dead Space Downfall was a 2008 film, like I said. It ran for like an hour and a half, something like that.
Hour and 15 minutes.
Hour 15.
75 minutes.
Yeah.
It's one of our shorter ones. I think, if not, probably one of the shortest things we'll probably watch doing all these.
In order to be considered a film, you need to be over an hour, I think. Because I remember
feel like a short film is always like 30 minutes and under. So I don't know what counts as like a full length.
I just remember like the original Dumbo film, the animated one, was like the shortest Disney movie, and it was like the conversation. I learned something about like, there's a minimum to what can be considered a film in relation to that movie. I don't know if it was under or over or whatever, but yeah. So I say this is a special day because I like doing these video game movie reviews here on the Sonic Movie Show.
It's our bread and butter.
Yes.
One of our bread and butters.
Yes. And if you like more of these, we have a whole playlist on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube already, down there or to the right or somewhere, you'll find
it's
somewhere. Click it and you'll find the thing. There's a whole bunch of them. You can see some of our classic ones before we did a full video version of everything, like the Street Fighter movie, Detective Pikachu,
Dead or Alive.
Dead or Alive.
Probably
most Resident Evil films, all the live action ones. And we're working on
those are all gems,
animated ones. Yep. And we watched a bunch for this season of the Sonic Movie Show, and we're going to do a few more too before the season is up. Dead Space Downfall is one of them. Let's begin with what we kind of always do and discuss, like, do we know anything about this property? Have we interacted with it before? They're all video games, so have we played them? And I want to start with you, Devin, because I think you're more versed in space and the deadness that implies. And I don't just mean like when
I love my astronomy and I love my
but...
corpses, so you know it.
And you're also a big Scientologist, so I feel like this is definitely up your alley.
Right.
Well, why don't we begin with you? What's your experiences with Dead Space?
Yeah, so Dead Space. My first memory of Dead Space was... It was on PS3, if I'm not mistaken. The first one, at least. I remember my dad used to play games like by himself here and there, like in the early 2000s. And as he got older, and like we got older, like we were most likely hogging it, or if we would all like play Madden together or something like that. But I remember Dead Space being one of the last like games he really tried to play. And that's when I first heard of it. I remember like seeing him play it because I think he got it like when it came out, and he really never did that. Never really got games when they came out, but he did with this one because he liked Resident Evil growing up. He liked Resident Evil, so I used to watch him play Resident Evil, watch him play Dino Crisis too, and that's where my love of it came from. That
a lot of people, Dead Space is like that original game, and the series was like a new Resident Evil. It was like, because if I remember correctly, like horror games died, and like Dead Space was really like the big return, and then they kind of stayed dead except for Dead Space, and then we got the last few years of actual ones.
Last of Us, if you count that, I guess.
It's scary.
Maybe it was later on, scary-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing my dad play it, and he can't do third person. Like, he just can't. Like, he was looking up, walking into walls, and whatnot. So I felt bad because...
Well, if he played Resident Evil, that was just predetermined camera angles, what I mean?
Yeah, so, like, he knew it was just different for him. So he eventually gave up. And then it was a couple years later, if anything, probably closer to, like, 7 years later.
I don't mean to interrupt, but your blanket just fell off your chair.
Oh, did it? Oh, well.
We could just see in the background just slide off.
It's a ghost, all right? It's It's the
Sorry, I don't mean
artifact.
to interrupt you.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So then it was like around, I want to say like halfway through college, like during summer break or whatever. I was home and I'm like, I'm gonna try playing this Dead Space game. I remember my dad playing it. He couldn't get very far, but it always looked cool. Like maybe I'll take a stab at it. And I was playing it actually in my brother's room. We usually had the PS3 in the basement, but my brother moved it to his room because I think the PS4 was down in the basement now, but the PS3 was in his room still, or whatever. How I don't remember why, but I'm
I
in my
remember
brother's
doing
room.
shit like that as a kid too. It's like, oh yeah, I now have a game console in my room because the newer ones. Now you open up that library again into yep.
Right. It was something to that capacity. And my brother didn't have a big TV either, so it was like a pretty older, probably standard definition, maybe early HD kind of TV. So I played it on that, and this game, out of all the games I've played, and I haven't played as many games maybe as the quintessential gamers out there, but I've played Dino Crisis, I played some Resident Evil before Dead Space, and Dead Space is the one game that really fucked with me. It was the first game that really like scared me. I remember in a good way. Like I like being scared. I love horror. It's my favorite type of like movie genre. And like playing this game, I'm like, wow, this is making me scared about every corridor I'm walking down, making me scared about, just trying to get to the next save room, like just like what Resident Evil was like. But this to me was just felt more modern at the time, and it just I don't know. It just reminded me of Alien, clearly inspired by Alien. I don't know. I guess there's a movie called Dead Space from like the 80s. I've never seen it. I might watch it this October
And
for
looking
Halloween
for this film,
and see if it's
I
related.
saw that pop up. Yeah.
I wonder if it's inspired by that. But yeah, I remember just playing it and being like, wow, the sound design is so good. The mechanics are good, solid. The story is pretty good. I liked listening to all the different audio logs and like learning about what happened on the ship and all that. And yeah, I remember just there's been times I'd be yelling, like be like, oh my god, like as something's chasing me, and my mom would call from the living room, be like, is everything okay? And I'm like, sorry, it's just the game.
She's like, at least he's not watching porn.
Right. But yeah, it's just I don't know, it takes me back when I see like clips from the game. And I won't say too much about my thoughts on this movie, but besides saying that this movie is definitely a prequel, it is a launching point for the game, and I kind of wish I knew about this earlier, because I think that'd been kind of cool to like either watch right after the game, beating the game, or right before it maybe. But to be fair, I think the game kind of rewards you going in blind, at least the first like hour or so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I assume that they were like, no, play the game first, please.
Yeah. Regardless, but no, Dead Space is definitely one of my favorite games. I've played a little bit of Dead Space 2. I borrowed from you.
That's right.
And then I haven't played it since, really. But I'm planning to get the remake. It's been on my list to get this year. I've been slacking on video games this year in general, but we finally have picked up Stray again after we played it when it first came out.
I saw a couple of your pictures on Twitter.
Yeah, so we're having fun with that.
Persona Fun. And you can search his media tab for cat pics. And I'm playing that, and after watching this, I'm like, you know what? I might try. We're gonna try to power through even further, like quicker now. I feel like to be like, because I think my partner will like. She'll like Dead Space because she likes horror and stuff too. So, and nice. I want to see like how different it is if it's if they're. I mean, I've seen some like Game Informer behind the scenes stuff of it, and seeing that like, oh, they changed this one area completely, like they added a whole new mechanic for gravity and anti-gravity and stuff like that. And there's different things pop up in different places now, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm curious to jump back in. But yeah, I would say I like Dead Space. I'm a Dead Space fan. Maybe I'm not a die-hard fan because I haven't played everything, but whatever, I'm a fan. You don't need to gatekeep me, you audience member. I'll gatekeep you. If you don't know every single fact and have played hundreds of hours of every single aspect of every single game, then you're not a real fan. Also, you need to share my opinions on those things in order to actually be considered respectful.
Right.
Some people are like that. I have not played the original Dead Space. I played Dead Space 2. You borrowed my copy. I remember that game was, of the 2011, was one of the best years for video games. I'm not going to rattle off the entire list, but folks out there, like if you think, oh man,
Uncharted, right? Was
2017 and 2018 were really good. Like 2011 is up there, if not maybe more so, because like there was an Uncharted, a Zelda, a Dead Space, a Portal, a Skyrim, Witcher
Yeah,
2.
it's hard to beat anything
just
with Skyrim in it.
so many. Dark Souls was that year. Like there was so much shit in 2011. And that was like prime year. I think maybe late 2010, definitely 2011, and maybe early 2012 did this thing where any game that had multiplayer in it, they locked it away behind a code that came in the box. And this was designed so that, and Dead Space 2 was that. And I remember telling you, you don't get to play the multiplayer because the code is tied to my account. You know what I mean?
Right.
The idea was that just to combat resellers on like selling it to GameStop. GameStop sells that used copy. Well, you're going to have to buy the multiplayer code from the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Marketplace. I remember that game was being the one where I'm like, well, I just don't really want to play this, to be fair, but I digress. I didn't beat that game. I played maybe half of it generously. It got hard. I was playing it with my dad at the time.
My understanding too, it's much more
actiony
packed than
for that's what
it's
I've
like
been
the Alien to Aliens equivalents.
Maybe that's why I would like the first game more, because Alien 1 is better than Aliens.
I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I think your other Alien take, Alien 3, that is your craziest take.
It goes Alien, Prometheus,
Covenant, Prometheus. Okay,
3 and 4 and 2.
You're crazy.
1, 5, 6, 3.
He's
4,
just saying Aliens
2.
at the bottom because he just wants to be that guy.
I want to be that guy. I just wasn't the movie I wanted. I wanted more Alien, and I got Aliens. But whatever. James Cameron. I've turned around on James Cameron. I used to say he was overrated and full of shit. No, man's a genius. Fuck old Ethan opinions. But
he's gone to the bottom of the ocean like 20 times. So
yes,
at least on that regard, he's a
during 9/11. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He found out about 9/11 when his producer on Titanic told him that it happened.
Pretty fucked up way to learn.
Crazy
for sure.
Yeah, in any case, by the way, John Carpenter loves the original Dead Space, and plays.
I mean, John Carpenter is also a goat. Yeah, he's a goat too.
Yeah.
Sure.
He has a video game coming out that is unfortunately does not look good. It looks more like a What If Left 4 Dead and World War Z. It was one of those types of zombie games, and not like what you would have think. That's my
not
Mario
the thing,
impression.
The game. Or whatever. I know there was the Thing game, but
PlayStation 2 had a lot of like rated R movie licensed games, like Scarface: The World Is Yours is like actually an expensive PS2 game, and The Sopranos had a PS2 game. So of course the Thing did as well. But yeah, I never so like that's my only Dead Space experience. I've heard that Dead Space 3 had like microtransactions or crafting. There's some sort of economy in it that people were like, this was very trendy at the time and was a way to like pad the game type of thing, or had microtransactions, and this was like 2013 at the time or whatever, when we were like, ew, buying things. Now you need to do that just to make sure the studio stays afloat.
Right.
As far as this movie goes, I knew it existed only within the context of the show. I did not know it existed beforehand. I do actually own, so that PS3 copy, I just forgot, the PS3 copy of Dead Space 2 also came with Dead Space Extraction, which was a Wii game, which was a light gun game like House of the Dead. And it was on PlayStation 3 because I think my copy of Dead Space 2 was a limited version. And the PlayStation Move ones were out at the time, so they just did an HD port of that. I never played that, but like I wanted to on stream before play some of these PlayStation Move games because I have a bunch and then like never touched them for PlayStation 3. That's really my experience. Like I said, like I didn't know this movie existed until looking up for the show. I thought it was shorter. I thought it was not an hour long or hour 15 long. I thought it was like 30 minutes and like was as on a bonus feature on like a collector's edition or something. I didn't realize you could buy it on Blu-ray and you can stream it.
This was the era too of like especially 2009, 2008, of like a game would come with like maybe like a special edition would come with a bonus disc that was basically a DVD that would
Yeah,
have maybe behind the scenes making of the game,
which is
director's
cool. That's
commentary,
just
which is
cool.
cool. But then yeah, then there might be like a 20-minute, just either
Yeah.
prequel. Maybe this is one character in the game that has an extended thing. Pretty sure Mortal Kombat has done that in the past. Maybe I'm misremembering, but yeah, any of the I feel like a lot of games did that back then. So I'm kind of surprised this wasn't a because when we first had it on our draft list, I didn't look it up because I didn't want to cheat. But
I only
when
pulled it
but I know
screenshots
you
of
pulled it.
these
I know you
for
pulled it because like you wouldn't have put it on there if it was a 20-minute thing. So
let me oh yeah. Well, so we have the spreadsheet that has currently a little over 120 movies on it, video game movies. I've updated this list 4 times where I've broadened the definition of movie, and this might have been part of one of those revisions because it was before it was strictly like theatrical releases and long direct to video. Okay, fine, it's 2 OVAs, but you can get them together and they're clearly meant to be seen as one thing. Okay, fine, that's on there now. Halo miniseries, but it's sold as one packaged thing. Fine, we don't have anything Halo on here. This might have been
yeah,
within that first revision. Um, but yeah, I that was on our list. Oh, I deleted our when we made this. You can watch episode 153 of the Sonic Movie Show, which has us making our draft for this season's movies, which we'll go over that list before. I remember when I built that list, I randomized 2/3 of it, and 1/3 of it was ones I handpicked of like these are important
the
movies. I don't know if
necessities,
they're
the
good.
necessities.
Yeah, ones that we
Yeah.
should probably do before we decide not to do the show anymore. I don't remember which list this was on. I want to say it was a randomized one, but I could be wrong. And I want to talk about the video game or the movie itself. Um, if I could go first, I would say I am surprised that it's not shit. I thought it was gonna be bad and like my thought was like, what if Chronicles of Riddick Dark Fury? You can watch the Sonic or the Chronicles of Diesel podcast episode we did where we talked about that. I thought it was gonna be literally like that, where like the animation is weird. There's some quality to like maybe about it, and it was just gonna be just such a side thing. Who cares? And be short and be ugly. Although I don't really feel like that. I feel like Dark Fury was ugly, but like weird. Like you
Yeah,
need to
there was
like
something
it.
off about it.
Yeah, you need to go in and be like, I want to like this, and then just like find your way to fit yourself into that frame
Like a
to like
snake.
it. Yeah. Or one of those game shows where the wall is coming towards you, you have to do the pose in
Or
order to fit
Mr.
through.
Driller. You gotta drill through the
Mr.
right
Driller.
spot.
Yep.
Our guy, Mr. Driller.
Yep. I believe that's the only game on the PlayStation Classic I played more than 10 seconds of. When
We
got
played a lot
that.
of it though that one night when we
Yeah,
when we-
your house. Yeah. So that machine wild to me. What was I going to say? Oh, I thought that was going to be like Dark Fury, and I will compare it to that throughout my discussion on this film. This is much better than what I thought it was going to be. We'll talk about rankings at the end, but I was expecting something very bad and very short and very forgettable. I do think overall the animation is kind of eh. When things are really up close, it can be good, especially like our main character Alyssa Vincent putting on her jacket at the beginning. The way that was animated I thought was good, but much better than when characters are in the background or even the middle ground. They're kind of like blobs when they walk around. The foreground is kind of where all that effort went to. And I think for the most part every character besides her is forgettable. I didn't know anyone's names besides the fact that I opened up IMDb and looked at them, because I also want to know what the voice cast was in case I recognized anyone. I only recognize one person. The nurse is Ahsoka from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's it. Everyone else, I'm like, the captain is John Cummings. I think I've seen that name. Maybe I thought it was funny, and that's why I recognized it. But
Yeah, Jim Cumming is
Jim's
Jim
Cummings.
Cumming
Yeah,
is
yeah,
Captain Mathis.
yeah,
Alyssa
yeah.
Vincent is our main kind of character in
Yep.
this.
Yes, she's the only one that really matters. And like, I can go in and I've talked about this before with Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15, where I'm like, this is a part of a larger marketing deal for a video game it's based off of. It released around that time. I don't know if that's the case for this one, but it's comparable. But for that one, I'm like, you do kind of need to have played the game in order to really appreciate this. However, we can't just wave away its issues by stating that if you can buy it on its own, you can buy this on its own, and I think a lot of the same stuff applies. We're like, it's the 3 minute intro monologue on the state of the world and why you're starting the game this way. I didn't play the first Dead Space, but I Googled at the end, hey, that ship, and I Googled the name. Okay, yeah, that's him on the ship along with some other people. Okay,
Yeah, it literally
that's the way the
it
game
ends. It ends right where the game kind of starts, but
Yeah,
obviously from a different perspective, because you're playing Isaac Clarke
yeah,
in the
yeah,
game.
yes. I think this movie is interesting. It's very tropey in its horror stuff, especially the space stuff. Um, I think the blood and gore was very graphic and violent in ways I don't dislike. And I don't remember what movie we saw something. Maybe it was Mortal Kombat, or I'm like, this ain't
Yeah,
doing it for me. Or I felt
Mortal
like it
Kombat,
was
Scorpion's Revenge.
Scorpion's Revenge, or
had a lot of
Night of the Scorpions, whatever I fucking said by accident once. Um, Scorpion's Revenge had, okay, that was the one then, because that was recent enough, where I'm like, I mean, I get it and it's cool. It seems a little, it's just not hitting me the way I think they want. And I don't think they were wanting to hit horror, just to be fair. But for this one, it hit me in the ways they want to hit me. So I actually was like, okay, this is earned, and I feel like every bit of this is deserved to be here. Um, I don't know too much about Dead Space's lore, but my first thought was I legitimately thought they said Scientology at one point, and it's basically something very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Church of Scientology, the Church of Unitology.
Unitologists is what they keep
Yeah.
calling people who are like believers in some sort of space god.
Thing.
Yeah.
And we
But yeah,
found
Scientology
its
is the
mark.
best way to I
Yeah.
think describe it.
100%. Overall, I enjoyed it. My issues stem from the fact that, like, it's a very, very boring story overall. It's entertaining, though, in what it does, but, like, did anyone struggle with anything besides the immediate situation in front of them? I couldn't think of any. I don't need a message or anything like that. Movies don't need to teach people things. Stories don't need to teach people things. But there needs to be some sort of theme or some sort of thing that one could pull stuff from. And maybe I am not literate enough to have pulled the thing they were trying to do. Maybe I don't ever want to be the person who just says, this is bad and lazy and like it's brain dead and clueless, unless it's an Uwe Boll film. So like I could not be correct. I could not know things. You know what I mean? It's possible. It's probable for some things, or like I have to find what people actually think about it first. Perhaps that there's a theme here that I was missing. But I didn't see anything, and I feel like that's where my letdowns come from. But it was way better than I thought it was going to be. So my long rant aside, it was like 15 minutes or so. How about you? What did you think about this film?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with having some prior knowledge helps. But I don't know. For me, it was cool, kind of like how how it ended, being like, cool, this is gonna pick up right where the game kind of starts. And I said earlier, like, maybe it would have been cool to watch this beforehand. I don't think it would hurt. Maybe it would just not ruin. I don't like that word. Maybe like dissatisfy some of the monsters that you run into in the game when they're revealed. Like, for example, there's like a baby with like tentacles out.
I never.
That's in the game.
Remember that.
That's in the game at a certain part where you get to this one area which was supposed to be like the like kindergarten area
Of
where
course.
it's like super like it's supposed to be like early like childhood development area or whatever. Like, so there's pregnant, people go there, they raise their kids there in that one section of the ship. And if I remember correctly, and now you get there and it's just like kind of disturbing in that regard. And then like all of a sudden these crawling babies with multiple limbs are coming after you.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so for me, like I like this a lot. I think because of my prior knowledge, I think that helps. To me, it just feels like a good extension of the game, but also I don't need to play the game, so it's not as scary. But honestly, the animation, I kind of agree with like some of like the wider shots maybe weren't amazing. I don't know what the budget was on this. Probably wasn't too big. But yeah, some of the close-up shots are pretty good. If anything, this animation style reminds me of like kind of like the Cartoon Network, like early 2000s era a little bit. Like I think of like Batman Beyond. I don't know if that was on Cartoon Network, but
that was WB.
that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, I guess Warner Brothers kind of like art style from like the early 2000s. That's the vibe I get with this in terms of design.
I can say that. I was gonna
so
say
remind me a little bit of that in a good way.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought I was gonna make a snappy little comment earlier that I forgot, saying it looks like a bunch of dudes wanted to make the animation based off what they remember He-Man being, but not actually being an 80s Saturday morning cartoon, because this has a different fidelity quality to it than those. But yeah, you're right. The kind of the
like I was waiting for Batman to come out.
Batman the animated
gutters,
series, Justice League Unlimited into Batman Beyond type of. Yeah, I can see that.
Even Spider-Man. From I think that was late 90s.
There's a bunch of Spider-Man animated different shows, so I don't know which
one where the theme song goes like radioactive spider blood, yeah, or whatever.
So not the one where he was friends with Iceman and some firewoman. Which is a weird one. Spider-Man has friends. I don't give a shit.
It's the one where he fights a giant ball that rolls through the city at one point.
The Incredibles. I got that.
Yeah. I think it's the late 90s. I had season 1 on DVD as a kid. I think it's just called Spider-Man. Regardless, all the animation style remind me that of like that era in a good way. But yeah, I kind of agree with the characters. Some of them are forgettable, but that's fine because I already knew going in what the outcome was going to be, which is all of them are going to die. And I feel like the beginning kind of hints at that anyways, with Alyssa being doing that video, being like, we're the last of the survivors, which is a little bit of a trope, obviously. One thing I'll give this credit for, though, at least some of the characters, in terms of horror movies, and like I said, I've seen a lot of horror movies. I like horror movies. I feel like some of the characters are actually pretty smart, where like Alyssa knew right away, like, yeah, there's something wrong, like immediately. Like, and I feel like in these type of movies where like, I don't want to use Alien, but movies like Alien, all that. We watch the Doom movie. I guess I can point to that, where like no one can pick up the obvious that like we are in big trouble early enough. Like it takes them to see a monster to believe what is happening.
I will argue though, just following the trope of because it's not unique in the sense that it's never been done where someone does pick up on, we can't do this, but it is discarded by a superior, says, nope, I don't give a shit, go back.
Well, it's this thing I was going to say, you're talking about themes. I think one of the themes of this is classic bureaucracy malpractice, which is that the guy at the top doesn't believe any of his superiors or any people below him, and people will just blindly follow until it's already too late, or they have to kill him. So for me, I don't think it's a strong
kills himself.
theme.
Let's be fair. That man killed himself.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have resisted. That sounded like a cop just there. I take that back. That man was murdered.
I did like the syringe going into his eyeball. That's a pretty nasty way to die.
There
There's
were
a lot of nasty ways to die.
There
in
was a
this.
handful of moments where I wasn't expecting something so gruesome to happen. So it gets points there. I art and
You like
what
art? You like
I
art?
like art. I'm somewhat of a fan. I just went to the My Pillow warehouse and I bought a bunch of art pieces in an auction. Uh, um, so stupid. Um, when it comes to art, I stand on the I like to believe that the what the author intends or has to say, even though I talked about themes and discerning, at the end of the day, none of that matters. Death of the artist, only the audience remains, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you pull out of it is something there. I think what you said about bureaucratical malpractice is not intended, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Or because like my gut
No,
reaction
yeah,
was to say no, I don't think that they meant that. But to be fair, we live in a world where there are a lot of assumed things, and there are people of different viewpoints. There are people that think there are plenty of Hollywood movies where the villain goes to change the status quo in what they believe are for good reasons, but they're doing it really poorly, or they're killing a baby, whatever. That's the easy thing to do to make someone really obviously evil. Seeing you, Joanne Rowling. Johnny Depp's character wanted to end World War II, and you had to have him kill a baby in order for us to really know he's a bad guy. I digress. Going back to the status quo, for a lot of people,
forgot about
involves a lot of things that we might think are problematic. You know what I mean? That's a norm for those people. So the people that maybe directed this movie might not necessarily see that hierarchical absolutism of the captainship and blah 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 as an issue in and of itself. It's just might have been a fun story for them to tell, but that doesn't mean you can't pull that theme out of it. And I think that's something I didn't think
Yeah,
about. So
I mean,
that's something there.
I just feel like for these types of movies that I've seen, that isn't normally the. I just feel like it isn't normally the case. Usually, like the captain is doing the right thing, or he does believe. You know, what I mean, I just feel like this kind of went
He has
against
to
the
make
grain
the
just a
tough
little bit.
calls of killing some of his own crew to saving the universe.
Yeah, like he'll be the smartest one usually, or one of the smartest people. In this case, he clearly is driven by a religion, and people listen to him until. I mean, it was already GG once the lifeboats basically left. Once that
Right?
happens, it's done. You're done. It's GG. That's when you need to like hide in a closet or do
Who
whatever it
did that,
takes.
by the way? Was it implied to be him?
I think it was just like someone did it.
The necromorphs wouldn't have done that, right?
Well, but the people have go crazy enough that they still have like they can still
Okay, yeah,
do
yeah.
things. So I think it's just
That's
one of
fair.
those like the guy
Okay,
sees
okay.
something and then he's doing it. That's what I like about Dead Space. I mean, different than maybe like I think on the surface it like it can be seen as just this is just Alien again or Aliens.
Yeah.
But I like that they added a little bit of like no, there's like a part of it that like is the going stir crazy, and a lot of space movies too pull from like movies about going like boats being in the seas for a long time, how people can get a little crazy, stir crazy. It's like cabin fever on a ship. And I like that's pulled into space shit a lot. And I feel like this is just an extreme version of it where it's actually part of like, the artifact playing games on people on top of the actual monsters. I think I like that because in the game, there's some, you just run into some people who are just actually more scary than the monsters to a certain sense because they still have some sort of intelligence to carry
Right.
weapons or guns or whatnot, and they can control your environment more.
Mm-hmm. That was
But
reflected in the film as well.
yeah. What was I else gonna say? I did like some of the different transitions. I thought were interesting, like how they would transition from one scene to another. There was some cool shots. Like they're just I don't remember the one up top of my head, but just there'd be like a way to like transition to another scene or maybe a different angle that I wouldn't expect. and you talk about the graphic, like, violence and blood and gore, and that fits with the game because when you die, that's what happens to you.
Yeah.
Isaac will get ripped in half, his helmet will be ripped off, his head will be ripped off. And sometimes the environment does that to you as well. You get crushed between a door or whatnot. The laser swords, I think the most graphic one was the laser sword where they cut a person in half. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was I was not that was like a next level brutality.
I had that
right
spoiled
there.
for me because when trying to find pictures for our initial artwork, that was one of the ones that popped up. I'm like, I'm gonna forget that, and then I forgot it, so it worked. Can I, while we're on the topic, can I just say, someone's gonna think I'm being mean, but like, I didn't actually look at the credits, to be fair. I kind of just let them pass by while I was doing other things on my computer. So maybe a woman worked on this movie, but I feel like that's what a lot of straight dudes would think a cool woman that's a little weird would have as a haircut. Because a haircut's awful. I'm sorry. It looks like whenever I shave my head and I miss a spot, and like there's just this strands hanging down.
Don't hand
I think it was terrible.
Cuts, dude.
I'm hating
you're just
on
not
that
in
one.
on the
really
you're
bad.
not on the 2100 fashion. I mean, that's the difference.
Yeah, 2100. I will say our Vasca's stand-in, speaking about aliens, her haircut was fine, and everyone else's haircut was fine. And something Irons, I almost said Jeremy Irons. Something Irons, the big guy, Samuel Irons.
Yeah.
He had a very, I feel like, Native American haircut.
He plays Goro in Mortal Kombat.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. I could tell the resemblance in the way that man carried himself. Everyone else's hair was fine. I just wanted to point out that, like, I feel like that was just like,
I thought
what were
her
they trying
hair
to do?
was cool. All right,
I'm sure you did.
I'm gonna stand on the hill.
I'm sure you did. Oh, you don't want to offend anyone, so you have to go and you have to. I don't know what I'm trying to do.
Well, some of the necromorphs' hairs, they could have got some work done. I'll say that.
That's true. They could have gotten some neck work done as well.
Some neck work.
Anything else about this that we want to talk about before we go ahead and rank it?
The color palette, I was going to say color palette matches the game. A lot of orange. So, like, difference between Dead Space, going back to, like, the comparison of Dead Space to Alien, because it's easy to make. Dead Space is much more industrial. Much more, like, factory vibe. A lot of browns, a lot of dark colors like that. When Alien is much more
organic,
and then when it's not organic, it's very corporate on purpose. Obviously, those movies are all about corporations sucking and doing whatever it takes to get what they want. Artifact is cool. I always thought that was cool in the game when you first run into that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, me playing the second one and not the first one meant that there was a lot of assumed things about that like I just had to take for granted that it was a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it was either the second one or the third one, and I never played the third one, but maybe a trailer caught on that, like, oh, there's more of them or something, which I guess would make sense. I don't know. I'm okay with, like, the huge coincidence of us finding the one thing in the universe, versus having them be everywhere. That makes it more likely to find. I will just say, overall, it ain't no Chronicles of Riddick. Give me another one of those games, please, instead. You know what? EA Motive, you made that remake. Why don't you do a remake of Escape from Butcher Bay and Assault on Dark Athena?
That
please.
game will sell 500 copies.
To me alone.
Yes. To you alone.
Yeah.
I'll buy one. It's $499.
Oh, okay. You'll be generous. You'll buy one of my 500 copies off of me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a scalper for the Chronicles of Riddick.
One thing I'll say that I regret. I wish I I wish I just played the game, because I wonder if, like, it's hard to remember, like, if, like, the control room there, like, I wonder if that is
environments
from the game. Like, I want to know if the environments are close to the game or not.
If it's that ship, I recognize the name Ishimura.
The Ishimura is the ship.
They were talking about. I'm like, okay, yeah, so this must be where the game takes place, but I didn't know if he was on the crew or something like that until the end. Or I'm like, I'm gonna Google.
So the
ship.
game starts with, like, him and a couple other people, like, responding to the distress signal, coming there, and Isaac is a engineer, so he's not really
Yeah.
made for combat, and that's why his weapons are like welding things. Like that laser gun is made for, if I remember, I think he finds, but I think at first you get some sort of, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, but yeah, I think you have the gun at first. But there's different weapons you get that are like engineer kind of based things. Because he goes in with the knowledge like, oh, we need to turn the power back on. That's always the classic first thing you have to do. And
Of course.
oh, this door doesn't work. And so it's a lot of like going back and forth and learning. Like, oh, I remember this area. This area was really scary. I know in the new Dead Space they added it so like there might be certain rooms where you have to pick and choose. Like, do you want the power to be out? Do you want the gravity to be off? Do you want do you want to unlock all the doors? You know, like, but like one, then all the other things would happen, which I think was, like I said, I haven't played it yet, but I'm like, that's cool for like a replayability. So, yeah. But
well, oh, and I want to play that remake. I also want to play with the original Dead Space team or creators, their newest game in the PUBG Protocol universe, the Callisto Protocol.
Is it in the PUBG universe legitimately?
It was initially, and then in the very late stages of that game, they said, no, it's not anymore. Because they probably realized how dumb that would be. And I haven't played it, and so this is maybe spoilers in the sense of the framework of the story. The game has DLC, which I didn't realize, that came out recently, which added the real ending. Apparently the game ends with a fake ending, and then there's a real ending. And people were baffled by how stupid the ending was. Like, I don't know, but it feels like the absurdity that people are referencing about it seems like it almost be one of those, because it's a prison thing. Oh, what if, I'm just speculating here, what if it's all just in his head and nothing happened and he's just in his cell? Like that, that absurdity of none of it actually was a thing. He gets out of jail
and it's on a fucking island with a bunch of people saying the N-word.
His paradise.
PUBG.
Oh, I get it. I thought you were talking about like the prisoner,
no, like
mentality.
I just know like the waiting room for PUBG is just like, at least I haven't seen anyone play PUBG in like 5 years, but back when I would watch streamers play it, there's a bus.
You waited until one man entered the bridge and you were like, that's it for me.
That's it for me. I'm surprised PewDiePie didn't name his kid The Bridge or something like that, to like as a reminder of where he fucked up. For all of us gamers.
Yeah, he fucked up long before that. I remember when he paid someone $5 to hold up a sign that said something pretty awful on it.
Yeah,
that was like a decade ago. Wow.
Yeah.
No, like the Callisto Protocol apparently has such an absurd ending that like I remember people are being like, yeah, fuck EA. This game is gonna take over, and then like back to back, that game comes out and was just okay, and then the Dead Space remake comes out, and people are like, "Oh man, this is really good." I should play both.
I don't know. I wonder if they kind of hurt each other though, because they're both the same quote unquote thing. That like,
yeah.
And if people can only buy one, right? Like if
they're gonna pick the known quantity, especially because reviews will be like, "Oh, I didn't realize how much of a melee combat game the Callisto Protocol is. You are mainly just throwing people around and not actually like shooting off their limbs." Like when people oh man, PlayStation made their own Smash Brothers, but they copied 80% of it, and like the 20% they didn't copy is what makes the game good. So it's just kind of boring. And then like I think the same thing happened with Callisto Chronicles. Like, oh man, they want to do Dead Space again, but not the things tactile gameplay wise that people really liked from that game.
Again, they probably want to try something else different, but yeah, I mean, Dead Space is more like Resident Evil in terms of tank controls and stuff. And Callisto Protocol, we both haven't played it, but from what I've seen of it, yeah, it definitely seems more like you're able to run around a little bit more mobility.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk about the topic at hand here. Dead Space Downfall was a part of our.
Oh, I get it, hand, because on the cover it's just a hand floating in space. What a reference!
Not the remake. It's Isaac in the suit, which I get because that's the marketability of it. That's more recognizable than the hand, but that was a great first cover. I think I bought that off eBay, the PS3 version of the first game.
One last thing I just remembered, speaking of the first game. At the end of the credits, they're playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I remember the trailer for Dead Space, and they used that same. They played
Oh.
that, so I thought that was
It
a
makes
cool
sense
thing.
because I thought that was very just why? This is a weird artistic choice.
I remember for the first trailer of it, they used it. And I think even for the remake, they did bring it back too. I just
Interesting.
remember
Well,
like they just showed
it's
a
public
cut to
domain.
a cut to
So.
the necromorph doing his arm things to the camera. That's all I remember.
Here on the Sonic Movie Show, one of the things we like to do is watch video game movie reviews. No, we like to
Crazy.
make them. We like to watch video game movies and do a review on them, and that's what you're watching. We've done
love to
plenty of
make
ones
movies.
in the past. We've done plenty of these video game movie reviews. And this season of the Sonic Movie Show, we decided, hey, we're going to do a draft on it. You've heard us talk about it before. Draft is very simple. We each had six
Six.
six movies each.
12
We go
in
back
total.
and forth. We get points on them based off a tier ranking. Now, how do we determine what these tier rankings are? Well, I will show you what previous movies have been tier ranked as. So, we have a total of 7 different letter grades. If you're watching on YouTube, you will actually see these. So pause your Spotify, your Apple Music, and go to the same kind of general time code on the YouTube version to see a visual. S and then A, B, C, D, E, and F. Very simple and very quick. Why don't we start from the bottom? Because we start from the top often, because that's how my eyes work. The F tier is for really abhorrent and just generally offensive films. Really, the only movie we've reviewed that we've decided is an F tier film is the Postal film for just being just god-awful and also legitimately offensive. You take a step up from that, and that's where you can actually get critical and not just throw something in the bin. Because for me, the F tier is I'm just throwing this in the bin. I don't give a shit. It doesn't deserve to really explain why it's that bad. It's just really awful. The E tier are the films that are really bad. However, there's something in there to be disappointed about and not just rage-inducing. Whether it's Mortal Kombat Annihilation, that second 90s Mortal Kombat film being very, very corny with none of the enjoyable camp that the original had. Whether it's King of Fighters, which just did not understand its source material. Monster Hunter, which did not understand its source material, and Blood Rain, which didn't have enough slurs in it to crawl out of the F tier and make its way into E because it's a movable film. The D tier are the ones that are just really boring. They might have something in there that you could make a movie on that might be interesting. Assassin's Creed is a good example of it. The Warcraft
It's on the
movie
source
is a good
material,
example.
but it's
Why did you do it the way you did it? The Doom film. Did y'all not play Doom? Sometimes it feels like maybe you didn't play Doom. That type of stuff. We move up to the C rank, and that's where films are, I guess, average, but we grade on a curve here, so these we would consider to be good-ish. There's enough to like as there is to dislike. We're talking films like Advent Children, most of the Resident Evil films, the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider duology, and the Street Fighter animated movie, which I've heard some people say, no, that's like god tier video game movie. So maybe we're in the minority. I think if we watched it back then, we would have a higher love for it than we do here. But those are films where there are good things in here. Maybe the story kind of sucks, but the action's good. That's kind of how I think about Advent Children. I know you were kind of there's a lot of good things to maybe think about with some of these Resident Evil films, but why the fuck are they the way they are? So there's a give and a take there with the C tier. B tier is when there is more things that are good than there are bad, but you kind of wish there was a spark there to make it great. We're talking the surprising DOA Dead or Alive film, whose corniness and absurdity carried it to the B rank. The Dragon Quest Your Story film, which visually looked very interesting and had this weird meta twist at the end. I guess spoilers, but we reviewed it before. We're like, no, this is interesting now. The original Mortal Kombat film, the original Resident Evil film, the original Silent Hill films were like, there's good stuff here. I can't wait to see more. Why are all of its sequels a tier down or lower?
Because they threw away the script every time they went to another one. Like, what if we did this instead?
Yeah. Remember, there is a Silent Hill film based off Silent Hill 2, one of the greatest video games of all time, done by the director of the first Silent Hill film. So, we might be getting a good movie there. So B tier are good films. Let's put a stamp on it. The A ones are films that are legitimately very good. You could easily disregard or hand wave away some flaws because we A grade on a curve, and most video game movies are worse on average than all other movies on average. I would say it's safe to say.
They've had a rough history, for
you
sure.
know what I mean? We're starting to get to the era where comic books might actually start dipping below video game movies, as shocking as that might seem.
The power rankings have been shifting slowly but surely here.
Yep. The power dynamics of the DC universe has changed.
Yes, for sure.
Legitimately, that movie was very bad.
Thanks to a blue hedgehog and an Italian man. So.
Yeah. Who'd have thunk it? Gaming's some of gaming's oldest icons come out with heavy hitters and are good films, fight off against some of comic books' most obscure heroes with D-list films. Who'd have thunk it?
Don't worry, Blue Beetle's on its way. Okay.
I saw it. I've seen. Oh God! I will say, hey, at least that film, the helmet is not CGI and it's a real thing. You're getting that Power Rangers.
That's an improvement. That's
you're getting that Super Sentai wackiness.
2008 called. And he's Iron Man's back.
I don't even know if that original Iron Man film he actually wore a helmet.
He did. That was the last one where he wore like physical everything, and then after that they're like, "Fuck it, CGI everything." Yeah,
whatever.
And it shows. It shows.
It does. That first Iron Man movie's good. Second Iron Man movie's also good. The third one's okay. God damn it. Like I was saying, the A-list tiers, A-list tier of the video game movies list that we have
AMC
here.
A-list.
Yeah. Are all movies where, like I said, you can hand wave away anything that's wrong with it. You can still be critical of that stuff because you wish it was even better. But, like, it's just a fun and entertaining film. We have both Mario movies on here. The live-action Raul Julia, rest in peace, Street Fighter movies on here. Sonic 1 is on here. Mortal Kombat's kind of reboot film is on here. These are legitimately very good movies. Uncharted, that's a good-ass movie. It's entertaining as hell.
I want to watch that again, actually. I'm feeling the vibes. It's a good summer movie.
Because that steelbook comes with a stupid replica of the ring necklace, Best Buy won't sell the steelbook for like less than fucking $40 or some shit.
Because the ring is $20
because it comes with the steelbook. Or comes included, so it's like it's annoying. I don't need a prop.
You can wear it though.
I need a prop. I played Uncharted 3. The motherfucker let it go because he didn't let it define him. I'm not going to take that ring, although sure was worth a lot of money. The S tier is very simple. These are A-list movies that are just it's a star. It's like saying an A+ or putting a star at the end. This is just a half a step up. Where like this is the best video game movies can get that we've seen, unless you're somehow able to reintroduce filmmaking techniques that we haven't used before or brand new ones that we've never used.
Or they got so close to the reference material in a way that is both new from the game but also pulls from it. I feel like we've had games get close to it. Like Uncharted, I think, is the closest, I would say, in that regard. But like, I know it's an A tier, but I feel like for like us to have another thing above S tier, or we have to change the parameters at some point, it would have to be like a video game movie that just we come out of the theater being like, wow, that's a damn great movie outside of video game movies.
Yeah, and we haven't
got there yet. We haven't got there yet. We're getting close though. I can feel it any day now.
I would say, well, let me say this: we have 3 movies in the S tier that are of different types of film. But I would say the one thing that they all have in common is that the film isn't based on a specific video game. Yes, 2 of them are titled after specific video games. I guess all 3, but like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is not titled after the Genesis game itself. You get the point. Detective Pikachu is based off a game's plot. I get it. But really, it's just the idea of that title and then going and making a film. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is basically taking the idea and making its own movie on it. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is its own thing. And that could be a take on how you get to the S tier is you actually don't really try to do it, the actual game itself. But I will say, if The Last of Us HBO show was a film, I would say that's S tier. And easily. I think it's easy because that game and its sequel are basically just prestige TV shows with some gameplay in them, and I can say it both as a negative and as a positive.
Last of Us just got nominated for a bunch of awards. when
Yeah.
no other ones on our list have done that. So
Yeah, that we know of, to be fair.
yeah.
Emmys
So
at the
I
very
feel
least, because that's a TV show.
if someone could do a
But
movie like The Last of Us TV show with like a bigger budget and all that, I think then we might have to have a consideration for
I don't
an
know,
S
man.
plus,
Five Nights at Freddy's is coming out.
which we'll have to see
Fuck.
because it's in
I'm not
theaters.
looking.
That's
I'm
that's
not
our
looking.
rule.
Yeah, it's
That's our
our
rule.
It's our fucking rule.
Gran
Not looking
Turismo's
forward to
August 11th too. We gotta get that one too.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right.
I saw a
That-
trailer
that
in theaters
honestly-
the other day, so I'm
Really?
like, oh, reminder, August.
That
11th.
might be
So I
in
forgot
that
it's
S
coming
tier
August.
kind of category where it's like, I mean, yeah, it's based off the game, but like that's kind of its own thing. So maybe. Let's talk about the movies we reviewed for this season of the Sonic Movie Show. I'm talking about the 2018 Tomb Raider film, Resident Evil Degeneration, Tekken Blood Vengeance, Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge, Kingsglaive, Final Fantasy 15, Ratchet and Clank, Persona 3, the movie number 2, Midsummer Night's Dream, and now Dead Space Downfall. Again, folks, I want to reiterate that we have visual aids on the YouTube version, so please watch us there. Click the button and subscribe. I don't care. Do it, though, please. We have letter grade scores, tiers, but there's a point value attached to each of them. Essentially, it's just 6 for S rank, 5 for A, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0 for that F rank. You don't deserve any points for that. We have a decimal at the bottom there because we're using Rotten Tomato scores, audience scores as a kind of percentage add-on.
When we get to it, we have to do a check-in with one of your
I
movies. already
checked.
I looked too. It's nothing's
Yeah, I
there.
already
There's
checked.
no audience
I already
score.
checked. To kind of
Oh, man.
recap, the first movie was my pick of Tomb Raider 2018. It gave our only A rank so far. Devin's first rank, Resident Evil Degeneration, was a C. Tekken Blood Vengeance for me was a C. Devin's Mortal Kombat was a B. My Kingsglaive was a D. Devin's Ratchet and Clank was a D. My Persona 3 was a C. Now we're doing Dead Space. So
We've had it's been kind of a rough stretch.
it's
'cause,
very
like,
close.
this is not
but-
super competitive, but in the way I was hoping that in the end though this would just at least make it fun. And I'm like, hey, at least we'll see a lot of like hopefully solid movies and whatnot. And
Yeah.
we've had a couple rough ones, 3 in a row almost. I mean, Persona 3 wasn't. We gave it a C, so it wasn't bad. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank and Kingsglaive back to back was a little rough for us.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I'd rather, even if I lose this fantasy thing, if Ethan got all A's, I'm like, at least that makes the journey fun that we're watching a lot of A movies. But
No need to be
A-ranked movies.
defeatist about it. You know what I mean?
mean, I'm gonna
We're having
win.
Fun here.
Right,
You're not, but and we're also part of the. It's our score we give together. It's a give and take here, and we're both not like I need to make sure he loses attitude towards it. So this was your film. So taking everything that you've said about the film and scientifically boiling it down to one of our 7 different letter grade tiers.
I'm in the lab.
How would you end up? Put the beaker down, please.
Yes.
How would you
I'm
end up?
wafting. I'm wafting. I'm getting this
Oh
smell.
no, you don't want to do that. You're gonna burn your nose hairs. What would you give this movie as a tier?
I would say for me, I'm giving this a B because I feel like there's a lot more good than bad. If anything, I don't really think there's anything bad in this film. There's just some stuff that's kind of just like the plot isn't amazing. It's a little bit of stereotypical, but it's also a prequel, so I don't really want to take too much away from that. I do think one negative is it does require a little bit of prior knowledge, but I feel like it kind of explains stuff in terms of like how like the creatures work, where they come from. So I think that's good. Animation I thought was pretty solid for 2008. Definitely was on a lower budget, but we comparing it to like Resident Evil Degeneration, which probably had a bigger budget. I feel like this looked a lot better than Resident Evil Degeneration did at some moments. If anything, I maybe preferred even more, a little bit over. Well, I don't know. Mortal Kombat: Scorpion's Revenge is one of the benefits.
I think that
of
movie
was.
looked better than this one.
I think the gore is done better though in this. I guess I should say.
I can agree with that.
Acting wasn't like mind blowing, but it wasn't bad either. Like no one was like, "Wow, this delivery sucks." We've seen that in some of our other ones we've watched at this point. Yeah, yeah, I just feel like there's more pros, and it's hard for me to give it any like strong cons. There's cons, but there's no like strong cons for me, and I feel like that fits into our B tier because of that. And it's an hour and 15 minutes. And you know what? I literally just uploaded a Sonic Movie Show clip today talking about how much we love our short video game movies. It's an hour and 15 minutes. If it was longer, then maybe this could have been, start talking about a C tier. But it's an hour and 15 minutes. If you're not liking it, don't worry. It's almost over already once you start it. Unlike some other movies we've watched where I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at my watch, you know? Yeah, B for me.
All right.
B for Dead Space.
B for Dead Space. You know, kind of, I struggle with this movie because some aspects of it I feel like are kind of boring, but the film does keep a good pace about everything. A lot of the characters I feel like are very one-dimensional and are kind of nothing characters, but that's kind of what this entire movie is just, it doesn't matter who any of these people are. I mean, you knew that going into watching the film if you played the game. Unless they were trying to somehow tie into a sequel they hadn't yet worked on or something, you know, like, oh, there is a missing person or something. I don't care. I struggle with it. On the one hand, I feel like a lot of the things that we and I knocked about Kingsglaive are applicable here, and maybe in some ways that are more so, because I feel like at the end of the day, that film was trying to say or do something within its prequel everyone dies or just disappears forever framework that this one does. But on an episode you've already listened to by now, my take on Final Fantasy stories and attempting politics has changed when I don't think 15 did a very good job at anything that I wanted to do in terms of its political nature. That I can kind of see this movie getting away with it more than Kingsglaive. I think kind of overall this movie was pretty good. I basically go back and forth between giving it a C or a B. And the more I think about it, the more my nitpicks are trying to outweigh the majority of things where I said are good or decent. And there is a thread here to enjoy. I think looking at this list of movies that we have here, I think there's a thread to enjoy in all of them that we've seen so far, except maybe Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank to me, like, the more I think about it, like, I would still give it a D, but it's a lower D than Kingsglaive. Kingsglaive is also still a D, but there's a thing to enjoy in all of those films, Mortal Kombat especially, and the Tomb Raider film especially. And I think that there's definitely the things and aspects you can enjoy in this film. It's I wouldn't even say horror. I wouldn't even really say this movie is scary. It's just gory in ways that work.
It's
so to me,
slasher scary, where it's not like you're not. Maybe there's a pop up here and there, but you're watching it for the damn that's gross or damn I don't want to die.
Hey,
like
maybe
that.
It's a negative that I'm not that attached to any of these characters, so when they die, I'm not feeling anything. Besides maybe if it's a gruesome death and you. Maybe that's to its detriment. It probably is, but I'm of the opinion that I don't think it matters that much. I will give it a B tier as well, which I think puts us in unanimous, unless our third party guest here, if you want to come up. E? Okay. Ruling decider says it's E tier. No, D. Oh, geez, I wrote D. I meant to write
captain
B.
of the Dead Space ship.
I literally wrote D for Dead Space. Oh, by accident.
D for Dead Space.
So yeah, that gives you 4 points, which puts you in the damn lead, probably more so because now Devin is going to pull up the Rotten Tomatoes audience score for Dead Space Downfall. I will add it as a percent or a decimal.
Add point, whatever it is. So if it's let's say it's 50, then it gets 0.5.
Perfect 0.5. Now, to reiterate, my score as of this episode is 14.67. Devin's, as of right now, after adding in his 4 points, is 14.84. So tell me, Devin, how much more am I losing by?
All right, Dead Space has a 42% I will link it. And it sucks. I was really hoping Persona 3 was because we had this issue before of Rotten Tomatoes not showing any audience score, but then if you refreshed enough, it would show. And I've been refreshing it because it doesn't have one. But
we didn't have a ruling when we first did the episode making this list on what to do then. But since I will take the first hit, I said at the end of that episode, if there's nothing, I'm okay with a 0. Although I did Google before this episode, is this a weird thing? Why do some films not have any scores?
I forgot what other one it was. I think was it Tekken or Kingsglaive that we ran into? I think it was Kingsglaive where
it was one of my films because we saw it and
I was like, how is this? I would get if one Chanbara doesn't have an audience score over Kingsglaive, where Final Fantasy is big enough and well known enough that someone had to give a audience score for it. Persona 3, I don't know. I thought
the first Persona 3 movie had one, and the last one has it. It's just the middle two that don't.
Folks were skipping it, I guess. I
guess.
Yeah, 42%, 2,500 ratings.
There you have it. Devin's new score is 15.26, which means he beats me by 75 75 decimal points, something like that. It's still anyone's game.
Yeah. I will say I'm happy that I feel like I've been chipping away at your lead a little bit because you started off strong with Tomb Raider because that was, I think, the best.
It's probably going to be our only A film.
Maybe
Ni no Kuni will surprise us. I don't think the other 3 are going to. But I also didn't think Dead Space Downfall was going to either, and it was.
Yeah, so far my draft board's been inconsistent, but I was going off of just basically what does this name carry normally? Hopefully it just meets expectations, and going in, I would take a C from Dead Space, so I feel like I won there. Ratchet and Clank, I was hoping it would surprise us and be a C, but that didn't happen. Resident Evil Degeneration, I was really, because we heard about the other ones in this series being pretty fun and solid, so that's why I picked it so high. On my draft board, I've said it before, in my draft board I had Tomb Raider and Resident Evil as both my first pick, and depending on who went first, and if I went first, I'm not sure if I would have picked Tomb Raider or Resident Evil at the time. I was going to go with a gut check, but you went first, so it made it easier for me. But
how do we decide that I went first?
I think we did a coin flip or something. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, because then we did a snake draft, right? So you picked one, then I picked 2, then you picked 2, and whatnot. But I think it's still going to come down to these no-namers down here. Ni no Kuni's probably out of the last. I don't know. I think Ni no Kuni might be your last strong one, and I picked the counter pick with one Chanbara. And Angry Birds, you picked
by the way
the counter pick. So we'll
one
see
Chanbara, the movie Vortex, is also referred to as Chanbara Beauty, the movie Vortex. So when you're searching, you might need to search for that. Even though the games in America are called one Chanbara, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think you still have I have the most points right now.
If we take out the decimals, we're tied.
If you look at the 538, graph, I still think it's leaning towards you because you were winning. You won Florida right off the bat. And that's
we know anything about 538. Nate Silver doesn't really know what he's doing, I guess. But we're tied if you take out the decimals. That's what makes it. But what
I'm saying is I think the first pick might come back to haunt me. But that was out of the crop that we had. So
we'll see. Well, this was a fun and enjoyable episode of the Sonic Movie Show. Hey, we're on YouTube. You're probably watching us right now on YouTube. You can hit that subscribe button. There's a bell.
So if you click it,
in space, you get notifications.
If you're in space, you can watch it on YouTube.
Absolutely. If you hit the download first.
Or download. Yeah, you can download YouTube videos, I think, right?
If you have premium. By the way, I was watching a video because I have YouTube Premium because I'm tired of ads and they wore me down. I get it. There's a new higher premium bitrate option. When you click on the video quality now, I don't know if you have YouTube Premium.
What? How?
But I was watching a video today before this episode. Right before this episode, I watched this movie. And then before that, I was watching a YouTube video. And I was like, that's a little fuzzy. Even though I had the HD thing next to the cog, I clicked the cog. And then, I go to hit 1080p 60. And above that was 1080p 60 premium bitrate in all caps. So I clicked that. I'm like, sweet. This is a movie from several years ago. That's
That's
Yeah.
also shitty for like the opposite end, for like people who are like, yeah, I worked hard on this video and like the visual element of it, and YouTube's compressing it, but then there's a secret
I
higher quality
subscribe.
version that I can't even see. But
I mean, if Twitter could figure out a way to make its compression not shit, they would charge for it at this point
Right.
under its
Yeah.
current management.
Yeah,
Because
'cause,
like I've seen your screenshots of your Stray, and I see my screenshots of Final Fantasy 16. I'm like, these don't look as good as they do on my TV because Twitter.
yeah. Threads at least looks good. I'll give them that's more.
Threads
than
is full of
benefit.
people plagiarizing drill, and then the
Yeah, I
replies
saw
are not
that.
understanding drill tweets. We're on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
We're premium bitrate, maybe. My point is that we're gonna look and see if that actually affects us or anything like that. I doubt it because I've seen the videos; they look
I wanna
pretty
know
damn close
what
to
it-
the edited version.
Like, what is it? What is it doing? Like that makes it premium? Like what is it? Like 10
Maybe it
extra
streams
pixels or something?
better?
I don't know.
Because like bitrate obviously is tied to quality. I do know that YouTube's not perfect because Digital Foundry has versions of their comparison videos and stuff you can download because they are mastered at a better quality than what YouTube shows. So there's something.
Everything, so
There's something there. It isn't just perfect, but it looks pretty damn close for us for what we're doing. I mean, like we have a scrolling background and we're in like some frames, but other than that, we're fine. But yeah, comment down below if you've seen this movie back in 2008 and what you thought of it. Just do that, please. And
let
then
me know what you thought about Obama in 2008 as well.
Right in 2008, did you defend the drone strikes, or are you thinking that
Were
they're
they
bad only
happening
now?
yet? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know actually when they started. Under his term, under his reign, we're also
Iron
on.
Fist.
Yes, we're also on Threads, TikTok,
Instagram.
Instagram. I almost said Libsyn, but I was gonna pause on Libs because I was trying to think of what the other thing was. TikTok,
Libsyn.
Twitter, Instagram, Threads. We're all on those at Sonic Movie Show. So follow us there. You'll get to see some clips. I know YouTube Shorts as what the clips are on all those platforms, but just check us out there. I mean, you might see us on the feed, and we like to retweet and tweet some very saucy things. And every now and then I sneak onto our TikTok account and I just do something funny and Devin doesn't know. I'm on Twitter at Ethan Absolutely, and Devin's on Twitter at CursonaFun. I sneak into his house and I pluck the heads off his Godzilla figures, and then I make his dog lick them. The dog doesn't swallow them; that would be animal abuse. I dug myself out of that hole. We're on those Twitter things. Just bye.
Yeah. See you later. See you in the dead space.
Dead space.
Twitter's gonna be a dead space.
Hello, it's Devin from the future, or is it the past? Who knows? I'm just bumping in here to say that I actually did get Dead Space, and played about an hour and 10 minutes of it, and I'm trying it out on hard mode, and it is really good so far. I already died 4 times, but yeah, it's really scary, but brings me back for sure. Playing it brings me back, but definitely they made some updates to it, obviously, of it being a full remake. But yeah, only played an hour so far, but looking forward to hopefully powering through it more on hard mode. We'll see. Like I said, I've already died a couple times, so it's kicked my butt a little bit, but in a good way. It's been a good challenge. It actually makes it scarier to me when it's when the monster's a little bit harder to kill.